Hey guys, this is Carrie, and in this video we're going to be adding some colors to our About Me websites for Coding Club. So the first step to getting set up for coding, basically, is to go to that website, replit.com. So when you log in, you should get a similar website to the one that I'm showing right now, which will include a list of your replets. It might look a little different depending on the computer and the scaling of your screen. But you can scroll down, basically, and you should see your About Me website somewhere down there. If you can't find it, call me over. So I'm going to open up my About Me website. And it might give you a window like this, or it might load directly to the Workspace. But I'm going to click Edit in Workspace right here. All right, that took me a few clicks, but now I am in the Workspace to start coding again. And actually, whenever I code, I really like to have the website open in the full screen view. But this is especially important when we're adding style, because it will help us to see what our page looks like on full screen. So if you don't have this open, what you can do is you can click this little button here. And then I like to drag this separate so that I have the website separate. So last coding club, sorry, I'm so used to saying class, we created a whole bunch of HTML content for our web pages. So we had these things called tags, and each tag, like these H1 tags, creates an element which connects to the words that we actually see on our page. And depending on which elements we choose, right, H1 versus H2 versus H3 versus P, these are all styled a little bit differently. All right, so since you guys requested doing colors and styles, what we have to do is we have to switch programming languages from our HTML file to our CSS file, where we're going to be writing code in a programming language called CSS, which stands for Cascading Style Sheets. And I like to emphasize the word style because it's where all the style happens. So basically, if we want to add style to our web page, it works there's a pattern for how we have to add style. So we have to select the element that we want to add style to. So for example, I might want to add style to this H1 element. So then when we go to the style.css, I'm going to say, hey, I'm going to select the H1. And then I'm going to write these curly parentheses, which are the key next to the P key on the keyboard when you press Shift. I'm going to press Enter. And what you can do here inside of these parentheses, basically, is to list out. I'm sorry, I'm making a video, Rick.
You guys can stay. It's going to be a production meeting.
OK, I'll leave.
In about 20 minutes now, but you guys can be over there and they'll just utilize these things. All right.
OK. Sorry, I was making a video. I'm recording a video. OK. All right, so that's what happens, right, when you're shooting one take. No editing, guys. So here we go. H1, we created the curly parentheses, and this is a place where we can list out the different styles. And so there's actually a list here that includes all of the styles. But I know some of them by heart. So some of the fun ones to do at the beginning are we might want to change the color of our H1 to something like orange. And now what will happen is when we refresh our page, the color of the H1, the font color, is actually orange. If we wanted to change the background color, what we can do is we can write background, and then we can write the word navy, and we can press refresh. Now, these color code names that stand for colors, there's like a list of them that you can search up. I'll provide it in the link for our Google Classroom. But another way that you can find colors is you can actually go to this website called Color Picker, which Google provides. And this will actually allow you to have more flexibility with your colors. So that orange that I have here is not quite the shade of orange that I want. I want something that will like pop a little bit more. So what I can do is I can go on Color Picker and scroll around until I find the orange that I want. Maybe something like this. That looks pretty cool. And then I can copy and paste this thing called the Hex Code, which is a code that refers to that specific color. And if I put that instead of the word orange, now what will happen is when we refresh the page, the orange will change to that color. That actually looks a little bit worse. But I don't want to spend too much time on getting the right colors for my site because I'd rather you guys have the chance to color your sites. So let's say that we wanted to color not just our H1, but maybe our two H3s as well. In order to style those, we would have to start by creating a new group. So we press Enter, Enter, and then we say H3, which is the element type for biography and for my interest. And now what we do is we set up the curly parentheses and we press Enter, and we're ready to list out our styles. So let me do a different color, maybe red, and a different background color, green. Cool. So I've got those styled. Now, there are a lot of other styles that we can add. One thing I notice is that the words are really right up close to the edge of this background color. So if I want to create more space around the word, we call the space within the group something called padding. And so I can create a line for the padding property and do something like 10 pixels, which will add 10 pixels of padding on all sides of the words. Let's see how that looks. So you can definitely see the difference that made. It added some 10 pixels above and below. So I think that's a nice tool for us to play around with today. Let's see, what else could we add with this stuff? Oh, well, one that comes up really often, actually, when I'm teaching this to my coding classes, is that frequently we want to change the background of not the H1 or the H3s, but the background of the whole page. And this is a little bit different. So if we go back to our HTML, we can actually see that our whole page is in between something called the body tags. So the start of the body and the end of the body. And because our whole page is in between these tags, we can actually use that word body, and we can say, hey, take the body element, which refers to the whole page, and add a background to that. And I'll continue with my horrible styling here. I'll add a background that's yellow. And because this applies to the body, it will apply to the whole page. Wow, that's terrible. I'm sure you guys can do a better job than I'm doing. So these are just a couple of the different style elements that you might want to use. If you're not sure how to do something, and let's say you want to add a border, you can go to the CSS reference page, and you can actually search up here, border. And you can see a couple of examples of code that looks very similar to the code that we wrote. Now, one thing that I want to emphasize is when you look up code, it's tempting to think, OK, I'll copy and paste this whole H1 over here. But that's actually a really bad habit to get into. Because we already have the H1 group, what we should do if we want to add a border to our H1 is just copy the style properties here. Another bad habit that we want to avoid as programmers is I see a lot of students, when they copy and paste, do stuff like this, where they copy and paste it, and then the formatting gets all messed up. In general, we're the people who read our code the most, and we want to make our life the easiest. So we definitely want to press Tab here, which is the button above caps lock, to reline up our code so that we really nicely have one style per line. All right, so let's see what that border looks like. All right. The suspense is killing me. Hopefully this refreshes faster. Otherwise, oh, here we go. Nice, that border looks pretty cool. You might be curious about how you can change that border. And so it looks like when I was writing the border, according to the syntax on the website, we put something called the border width, which is this number here in pixels. So if we wanted to make it thicker, we could do something like 10 pixels. The border style. The border style, I'd like to see what my possibilities are for border style. So I think if we click this border style down here, this will show us the possible values that we can put. It looks like for border style, we could replace solid with any of these words. So let me just pick groove, because groove sounds super cool. And then for red, we can replace it with, that's not how you spell groove. This is how you spell groove. We can replace it with any word. that we want that's the color word, or one of these hashtag color codes. All right, so let's refresh our screen here and see. Ooh, groove is groovy. That's crazy. All right, so there's a lot to play around with here. You can add styles to any elements on the page, including the video elements. And in the next video, you'll see us add style to pictures.